back to the game. Let me know when you see it.
I see the game.
Okay, well, we are recording. As far as I can tell, everything is set up as we wanted.
Fantastic. Hello, Internet. My name is Ted Bendixson. I am the developer of Mooselutions, and I would like to introduce you to my friend Demetri. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, I'm Demetri. I've known Ted for a couple of years now and have watched him as he's developed both this game and other games, and just helping out doing a playthrough. So I have played some early developer builds, but I've not actually played many of the levels of this game. So I played through. I can't remember when. I can't remember the last time I played it, but I played through like 4 or 5 levels at some point.
Okay, yeah. Well, there was the super old version from a few years ago, and that was like did not have art like this. It was really just pretty bad program art. And then
I have
it's
played
gone
it with
through a
this
few.
art style, but
Uh-huh.
I think it's been at least 6 months since I actually played a level.
Very cool. Well, this is great because you're a fresh player and you're not aware of all the tricks. And so I guess just start playing wherever you're comfortable and we'll just kind of chit chat while you're playing.
Sounds good. Okay, let's go. Play. Okay, so I've got this guy. So that's letting me know that if I get in front of the moose, it gets angry and it starts trying to kill me. Confirming that, yes. Oh no, I'm dead. Okay. So let's... Alright, so I've angered the moose, and now I'm stuck, so that's not right.
Yes.
Anger the moose. There we go. Okay. Alright. So...
I like, you got the achievement. The trampled by a moose achievement.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of talking out my thought process as well. But so you get some thoughts on how a player might approach this, and also just to just stop me anytime and we can talk about whatever you find interesting.
Well, I think you're a pretty bright guy, so I'm guessing you're gonna breeze through the first 11 levels. Okay. Level 12 is is where it starts to get real. And that's why I guess one of the weirder things about this game is there's a lot of introductory levels, or there's just a few actually, and then there's kind of this moment right around puzzle 12 where it's like, oh, actually this is not a kid's game. This is real. So I'm curious how you'll do.
All right.
On level 12.
Okay. Well, now the suspense is building until level 12. Okay.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Here, so this won't work because now I'm blocked. So I need to get that guy. Okay, so here I'm discovering that I can use one moose to block another moose. All right.
Yep.
Next level.
Okay. Yeah, and for some of the folks watching, just a little bit of context. The game does have, it does tell you what the controls are, but if you can't see it on screen, it's just like any other kind of Sokoban style game where if you press R, you'll reset the puzzle. It's also got a really nice undo feature. So if you press Z, it'll just undo whatever your last move was. So there's a lot of that kind of just, you really do have a certain kind of freedom just to play around and try stuff without getting punished for it,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. It's definitely how I think about it as well. Like, here, I'll try this, expecting that you're baiting me into doing something I shouldn't do, right? But,
yeah. Well, and it's like because the first puzzle games that I prototyped, I think I didn't put the undo feature in, and it was like so hard to play because it was so hard to design like the much harder, more challenging puzzles because you would just want to get back to whatever state you were in, and so it is. In my mind, it's not a nice to have. It's like, no, you got to have that in a puzzle game now.
Yeah. So I need this guy here to block that guy. So now what can I do? I guess. Oh, okay. And now I've discovered that I can use one moose to change the direction of another moose. All right.
Yes.
So now I can bait this guy. Okay. And now I can bait that guy. Okay. There we go. Okay. I don't know if you added the moose turning or if I've forgotten about it, but I had forgotten about the... I was not right now thinking about turning the moose.
Yeah, the moose turning, I think it was in the game ever since the original prototype. But then, of course, we did a lot more with it. Moose turning plus a bunch of the other mechanics in the game, like the pushable blocks and the moose carts. There's some really interesting kind of emergent behavior that comes out of that. And when I talk about like level 12, sort of what I mean is like that's kind of when that stuff starts to hit the fan, so to speak. Like the combinations of those mechanics.
Okay, so here that looks like a fence. I'm just going to confirm that, yeah, okay, so I can't.
Yeah, you can't go through that.
And probably you didn't, probably that was, again, bait. So let's see. So if I have that guy up there, okay, so I have, well, what, okay, so now there's this panel. Okay, so guessing from other panel games, I imagine, from other puzzle games, I imagine if there's weight on the panel, then something happens. Okay, so being on the panel knocks that thing down.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need somebody on both panels. Okay. So now I have to turn that guy. So there. Now he won't get angry at me over here. Okay. There we go. All right. Here's 5. And again, just stop me anytime, Ted. I'm just doing a stream of consciousness.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I think you'll probably breeze through these first levels. And where it starts to get really interesting is level 12. That's where. So a lot of these first levels really are just to teach new players. Not really like the basics of a Sokoban game, but just kind of the core elements of this game. So they're they're highly simplified puzzles that are just saying like, hey, look, you can turn a moose, and here's kind of some of the stuff that is a consequence of that.
Right, so here, that's going to turn that guy, but I guess this is going to turn him back. Okay. And we have branching paths here. I'm not sure what to expect from that, but... Okay, so I don't see any new elements here, so... If I do this, what happens? Okay. So now I can't get that guy anywhere useful.
And actually, some of these puzzles are preserved from the Game Jam game version of it. So these puzzles were actually in the original Game Jam game, but there weren't really many mechanics that I could put into the game for that. But within that's the thing about jams is you really only have a week, and some of them are even shorter than that.
Sometimes it's just a weekend, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the problems with game jams is it's to come up with really good puzzles or even really good gameplay. I think you just need to take the time to explore the space, and so you can go off the branching path if you want. I would suggest doing not like puzzle 9.
Oh, okay.
But no worries. You can do this one. It's a good one. It's going to be a little bit harder though because it's off the branching path. That's kind of how I designed the navigation.
That maybe.
Yeah, you can also press I think M to go to the map.
I see. And then how am I going to get somebody up there? Okay, I'll follow your advice, and then I can...
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I don't see any new elements here, so let's see.
Yeah, this audio is, or the video is actually delayed on my side. So
I see.
as you're talking, like I hear you, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to see whatever he's doing in about 5 seconds.
So there. But now I can't turn that guy. Okay.
Yeah, this is teaching a thing.
It seems like it's impossible for me. So, okay, what happens if I do that? Aha, okay. So that is new. So you can move a moose if you hit it from behind.
Yeah, you can kind of scooch him.
Yeah.
Scooch him up one. I was trying to think about, because a lot of this game is kind of answering the questions of like, what happens when you X, right?
Yeah.
What happens when a moose hits a moose on the other side? What happens when a moose hits a moose from behind? What happens when two moose are facing one another, right? And they're both angry.
I see. That's... Okay, so what happens if I do this? There we go. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
10. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it's about how do I get it facing this direction, you know.
Okay. So that is also, that's a new element. You can push this around.
So I think, yeah, now we've got a theme change.
Yeah.
So we're doing the fall theme.
Okay, and then this blocks line of sight to the moose, so it's not angry at me.
Yes. And
acts as a weight.
it acts as a weight, and it also stops the moose.
Yes. Okay. Very good. All right.
So I suppose I could have put in, you know, now that I think about it, I maybe could have put in blocks that I'm not really sure, like how, maybe there would be some ways of drawing it, like maybe they're like rubble piles or something, or they like look lighter and the moose charge through them.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like it blocks the sight, but the moose charge through that. That might be interesting. Maybe I'll do that in an update of the game or something.
Yeah, that seems like an interesting thing to explore.
It might be. It might not. You never know. That's one thing, is like I'll... Okay. Yeah, I know this one.
So then I can walk safely there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Level 12. Should I do this, or should I... What's best to do next?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get to level 2, yeah.
Okay.
I see that you've solved that one. So what I hope is that, you know, these levels are kind of, they all sort of prime you for the time you get to that level 12. But we shall see. I try to give people all of the tools that they need to put it all together themselves. But this one's a little bit, it's definitely on the trickier side. But everything that I've presented in the previous ones should kind of give you the tools to do it.
This.
Hopefully I haven't like built this up too much. Maybe you'll just get it and like, you know what I mean?
Okay, so now I can trigger any of them. So So what if I start with this guy and then turn him? And then, but now, yeah, that's not gonna help. Okay, let's try. Let's go back for a while. Maybe I'll just reset. That's easier.
Yeah, the other thing too is the undo actually will go even past a reset. So if you reset it and then you want to undo before your reset, it'll just work.
I see.
All that stuff was kind of fun to program. Actually, this whole game is really fun to program.
But now I can't. Right, I can't open it, but then that just anchors the guy.
Yep. I have seen that state before many times. Well, that's kind of the fun thing about like having a switch that's like left behind is it's like, yeah, you know, it's like very taunting in some kind of sense because the player is like, yeah, you can stand on the switch, but as soon as you walk off, that
Right.
the gate's like opening and closing a bunch, and you're just like, I can't do it.
Is there anything useful with that? Does anything happen if this guy... No, okay, they can't like bump the block.
Yeah, there's nothing of that nature in the game. But again, you know, maybe that's a cool idea. I'm not sure how you would visually communicate that there's a block you could bump, but...
Right, and then that guy... Okay, so I think probably this is... I need to back up a little bit and think about... Like maybe I don't want this guy where I'm putting him. Oh, okay.
Have we had a realization?
I think if I do this... Yeah, okay. Right, okay. I'm beginning to see but now I can't bring that back.
I like that, like, you just randomly get trampled. Yeah, for folks watching, I'm presently working on a mobile port for the game for iOS. And so it'll be... Actually, I was playing it on my iPhone the other day, and it actually looks really good. So, but I think probably one of the really good platforms for it will be the iPad. I kind of can't wait to try it out on my iPad as well.
But if I get something... Okay, so I think... I don't have...
Is this the...
I don't have a turning ability unless I keep this guy there. But I don't have a... So if I were to somehow... Right. I was hoping to get that block one up and one to the right diagonally, but I don't think that I can.
Yeah.
So... Fine, what if if I stop him here, does anything interesting happen? No, then I have no way to turn that guy. And then I just end up with this again.
It's a close... This puzzle, I think, is maybe my second favorite in the entire game. If I ask players, it's usually their favorite puzzle. But there's another one that's kind of like later in the game that I really, really am thrilled that I somehow stumbled upon. And that's really what all these are. It's kind of like, not to, I'm not a mathematician or anything, but it's like the puzzles exist out there and they are to be discovered. And really, that's the only right way to look at it when you're designing a puzzle game. You kind of, even if you don't really think that these things are out there and exist in some kind of like spooky way, pretending as if they do is a very useful way to design a puzzle game.
It's certainly a tantalizing puzzle because I keep getting myself into, like, if I could just do one more thing.
Yeah, it's got that kind of like, right, it's got that quality of like, there's something just on the edge that I should be able to do that, well, and then hopefully by this point in the game, I've built up your trust enough that you trust me that if I put something in front of you, it's solvable, right?
Right, yeah. Is this just going to get me back into the same state? I worry that it will. Right, this is just getting me back into that state of...
What you're hearing from my audio is my dog, Moose. Moose! Yes, I do have a dog named Moose. He is a white German Shepherd. And both him and his brother, Luca, they love barking at cars and, stereotypical dog things. I know, Moose. You can't get him.
Maybe... Oh.
My dog, Moose, has a very squealy kind of a bark. As opposed to his brother's. His brother's got a serious, like, ferocious, black and tan German Shepherd bark. This white dog has, like, a squealy bark. Oh, interesting. It's delayed, but I'm seeing something interesting on my end.
Alright, so if I get that guy...
Another little piece of...
Gets me back into this. But I feel like there's something... So the big difference here was that I went up.
Yeah. Oh, it's... okay, Moose. I'm at that, like... Okay. Oh, there we go. That's the big one. That's like my spouse's house. The dogs have got a Moose. I might have to mute my microphone. Sorry, folks. Yeah, he's back.
Right, no, and as soon as there's a moose there, then the box is pinned. Then...
It really does hit me like how quickly the game's difficulty curve just like slaps the player in the face. And I think at some point in the development of the game, we really tried to like fight against that, like, or at least like as I was designing the puzzle, because a bunch of people would be like, it was kind of like mixed feedback. Like the feedback was, man, that puzzle 12 is really hard, but I loved it once I finally got it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I suspect that some people kind of like nope out of the game right around this puzzle, but for the ones that do solve it, then they like, I think they get pretty excited to play the rest of the game. And so, and then I was just thinking like, okay, the puzzles that come after it, some of them are easier, some of them are harder, but a lot of them start introducing like new elements and new mechanics. And so I kind of wanted people to have a solid grasp of this particular kind of thing before proceeding to the rest of the game. So it's weird because it's like a linchpin.
Yeah.
The puzzles after it are a lot easier.
I think the thing that I'm trying to do now is try to see if I can use the top right moose to turn one of the other two. So all this time I've been trying to figure out how to get the top two on the left to the two top left pads.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if now I need to get one of those top left guys to one of the bottom right pads, and the only way to do that would be, I think, the only way I can imagine doing that is to use the top right moose to turn one of these guys.
Sure, yeah. So, it's like that to me sounds like a pretty reasonable, logical deduction.
So then...
These things I must say without spoiling the game. Although, I mean, if you want to spoil the game, there's already a playthrough. It was not 1 week after I put the game on Steam that some people were posting their entire playthrough. I was just like, really? And it's like all these people in China. Pretty cool.
Okay, I think I got it. There we go.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah, and there I think, just speaking as someone who studies puzzle games from time to time, I realized that I was, well, let me just go back in the level so I can talk about it.
Sure.
I realized that my thinking was stuck on, like, over here, these bottom two right ones. I was assuming that it was going to be the top right moose and the box somehow, and similarly, I was assuming that these top two left panels were going to be the two top left moose. I mean, I wasn't thinking that consciously, but I was realizing as I was trying to figure out why am I stuck, it occurred to me, like, hey, I haven't even thought about maybe I could get one of these two top left guys somehow to the bottom right, and then I realized, well,
over there,
if I'm going to get one of those two guys to the bottom right, they're going to have to change direction, right? And the only way to change direction is to get them hit by the top right guy, and so
yeah. And that's actually like one of the cool things about this game is it's got this kind of, because the moose move in this very predictable kind of like line of sight way.
Yeah.
You can sort of like deduce the solution like backwards from the switches, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can kind of like look at the switches and then like look at the moose on the screen and then just be like, oh, if I like kind of almost like draw the path backwards or think backwards, you can think of the linchpin move that you got to do to get everything to fall into place.
Yeah. So just playing through that again, it was super clear this time around with that framing in mind.
Yeah, and I try to have every one of the puzzles have that sort of realization. Actually, some of the levels, if you open up the game's executable, like all the level names in there, they still have like, I probably should have obfuscated the level names, but like they still have the core strategy to solve. Like that's the name of it. But like, so I think I called that one Free the Block. because in my mind that was like the thing you had to realize that you could do was that you could free up the block and use it, move it around multiple times. It like when the block is in front of a moose, it's kind of like it's almost like the block is in check or something. It's
like pinned by a bishop or something in chess. Yeah, exactly. That you could.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Trying to move it
and so
opens a thread.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you just move the box, then like the moose will just charge past. Maybe you want that behavior, but most of the time you don't want that behavior.
Right.
So
what do you suggest next? 13, 7?
Yeah, really anywhere you want to play, really for as long as you want to play. Can do, maybe a few more puzzles. I don't think that we will be able to I don't think we'll get to the winter puzzles or the cart puzzles, but that is one element of the game kind of towards the end. I designed this game in such a way as to the way that I was thinking about it was that I felt like the natural progression of the game should be one where player freedom kind of keeps increasing.
Mm-hmm.
And so towards the end, you get these moose carts that allow you to kind of push the moose around. And so you get like a slightly more fine-grained control of the moose. And that yields some pretty interesting puzzles as well. And it just kind of came down to there's a certain amount of freedom that makes sense within the context of the game. And so I kind of pushed that as far as I could with the rail cart idea. This idea of pushing moose around felt pretty natural. There's still some thoughts that I had about potential things that you could do with pushing moose around, and I think I remember designing some where you push the moose sideways or like, but then part of it. What's tough about this is you always have to pick things that kind of like make intuitive sense in the world.
Right.
And so it would be a little bit weird if you could push a moose that's in a cart, but then you but then you're also able to push a standing moose or something. Like that would be odd if like one thing I thought was like, well, maybe if like the moose are frozen or standing on ice or something, you could push them like standing still. And maybe there's something there, but it just didn't seem. It is really weird, like how much of game design. I'm starting to appreciate this, like just how much of game design comes down to things, quote unquote, making sense.
Yep.
Like it's weird, and that's like a very intuitive thing, but it's just like, will like a normal person think that makes sense?
Right.
And you always have to kind of pick from that subset of ideas. So it's like the ideas that are really interesting that also make sense.
Yeah.
And that's what's in the game.
But now that block is completely stuck. Okay, that's definitely not going to work. So I guess one of the things that I'm thinking about now as a strategy is thinking about it in terms of which moose has to move first. So
yeah,
maybe if I
that makes a lot of sense.
So if I
to get to that state that you want to be in.
Oh, okay. All right, that was easier than I expected once I did that. Okay, all right, over here.
Yeah, they like I said, they get easy and then hard, and I guess a lot of puzzle games work that way. Like I think you can't really avoid that linchpin puzzle when there's some kind of core concept you have to teach or that the player has to understand. At least I don't know of any puzzle games that don't have these linchpins in them.
certainly all the ones that immediately come to mind have puzzles like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even one of my most favorite puzzle games, The Witness, that has the world is much more open and traversable, which is what I love about that game. That you can just run around and start really anywhere. But even then, I think there's just certain points along that journey, even if you do it in whichever order you choose, where there's just some core thing you're going to have to understand, and you'll get stuck on the rest of it if you don't. That's one of the big challenges of making a puzzle game, is keeping a player engaged in the game and making it so they don't just quit right away if they get stuck on a puzzle. And that the branching paths that I chose for this game, it's kind of got like a main path that's where a lot of the easier puzzles are, and then the things on the branching path are notably harder. And I do that just so that if you get stuck, you at least have a few options for something else that you could try, and you don't have to stay staring at the same puzzle forever.
Right.
You can just try something else out, see if you can beat it.
I suspect actually I'm going to want to here. But no. Aha, okay. Second. But okay. So I can do that conga line thing, I just need to... Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh. You're getting me thinking now. What if I could design a puzzle where you have to do the conga line? Or something like that.
Actually, you know what? Maybe I didn't actually have to pin the guy. I didn't have to pin the block the way that I did. I wonder... no, okay. So I do...
Wouldn't it be great if just watching you play, if I could come up with even more level ideas? Because I got to about 50, and that's sort of where I felt like out of ideas for this game. I've actually kind of come up with a few ideas just chatting with you right now.
I'm happy to be unintentionally helpful.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because it's like there's things that I would never think to do, or you kind of get stuck in your own ways of thinking. Yep. That's a really common thing.
Okay, so let me just reproduce what I had last time. Oops. So last time I had this, I think. Nope, that's not right. No, that's not it. Maybe this was it. But no, I can't move that. How did I do that? I wish I had a way to remember how I got the conga line. Can I get... I guess I can't get them both on one side. Both of the blocks on one side.
So we had 2 ideas today. Actually, if I had my note, actually, I'll make a note on my iPhone of, because one thing I was considering doing at some point was doing like a spring update or something where I like, just more puzzles basically. I don't think it would be DLC. Well, I think it would just be an update to the whole game. I don't think I'd charge more as DLC or anything like that. It would just be like a expanded game. But like a spring area with more puzzles. But I have to come up with like, sort of one of my rules offhand is if I come up with a new game idea, game mechanic, and I can't get like 10 puzzles out of it at least, then I scrap it, because it just, if you're only doing like 1 or 2 puzzles, I don't want everything in the game to be like throwaway, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And then it gets to be like really confusing to people where they're like, okay, he just introduced this, like, what's next?
Right.
And it's like, no, on to the next thing. And it's like, oh, great. So that's actually kind of one of the frustrating things when you're designing stuff is like, you can have a lot of great ideas, but then sometimes it's like, if it's just not at that threshold of like, I think I had a few ideas, or I had a few like game mechanics for this game where it was like, I got 8 puzzles out of it. And that's just like super frustrating, because it's like, oh, if I just had a few more puzzles, then I could have put this in the game, but it's not enough, So now,
I get him there. No, I think this was the. So one thing I've often wondered about these kinds of puzzle games is that in my head I'm keeping track of kind of a tree of things that I've tried.
yeah.
I wish that there were some way in the UI to assist that, because it feels like, I mean, this is not about your game or your design. This is like every puzzle game I've played, where I'm trying these branching thoughts of maybe I'll do it this way, maybe I'll do it that way, and I wish there was some way in somehow to communicate through UI and design how you are
some kind of like
exploring the those solutions somehow.
It's like
ideas.
Well, what's cool about that is it sounds like some kind of a generic system, like a reset or an undo, right? But I think maybe the reason, one of the challenges of that, I would imagine, is the amount of stuff that you would have to draw, and there's probably some design challenge around that. How to... It's almost like a branching path snapshot.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess the question that a designer might ask is like, what are the relevant bits of information there? So I think it would be relevant to somehow visualize the steps that you took to get to the state.
Yeah.
So like there's some final state that you were in, right? And then there's some set of steps that you took to get to that state. And being able to see that, to see a number of, like, being able to flag something where it's like, hey, this is an interesting state that I got the game into, or like this is a state that I want to kind of keep coming back to or reference. That would be really cool.
At a minimum, in addition to the reset and the undo, you could have a snapshot, so you could always go back to, and that feels like a generic thing, right?
That's pretty darn generic, especially for these turn-based. Well, here we are in the turn-based carnival, turn-based puzzle type games like a Sokoban, right? Where it's very clear, it's very discrete that there are steps of moves, and indeed that's how the undo system in this game works. Is it's just, there's a set of moves, and then it applies those moves to the board, and Well, actually, the way that my undo works is it saves a snapshot of the entire board, and I think it saves the move that caused it or whatever. But you could save all of that data, and then when somebody takes a snapshot of a state that they got into that they're interested in, you could just, I mean, the real generic thing would be to say, like, there's some UI where it shows the end state, and then you can just skip to that state, and you'll be playing it as if you had started that way, right? And so if you did the undo, you would undo through all the moves. You'd kind of unwind that stack. It's not something I've ever seen implemented in a puzzle game, but I think it would make for a much better experience, certainly. I think that's a common, like, it's common enough that people do that when they play puzzle games that I think it would make a good puzzle game great, or much better.
Yeah, and just elaborating a bit on experiencing it as a player, the thing that I want to do, the thing that I would enjoy doing, is trying to get back to the kind of moment I mentioned earlier, which is realizing, oh, I've always been thinking about it, like, these guys have to be here, but it's not, like, why am I assuming that, right?
Right.
And so being able to somehow navigate all the different states of the game to be able to think that way, I don't know, it would be nice to be able somehow to spend more of my time thinking about that and having those kinds of moments. I mean, obviously, the end goal is you want to have those kinds of moments, right? Like, aha, now I feel clever, or now I've had a good idea moments, right?
Sure.
But that's obviously the end goal of a puzzle game. But as an intermediate goal, I would like to feel like I'm at least thinking about those things, and I think having some kind of a snapshot or something, I don't know what exactly, I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but like, there's the lowest level, most detailed level of engagement, which is I'm, like, moving around one tile at a time, right?
Right.
But you have to chain, like, 10 of those together to implement an idea, and it would be nice somehow to be able to work at that higher level of analysis, or the broader.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense to me that becomes then yet another tool in your belt to approach the puzzle.
Right.
And I think there's so many games. A lot of my favorite games, actually, the innovation is just as much in the user experience component of the game as it is in the gameplay itself. Because, like, of course, it's got really amazing emergent gameplay. I was just playing Factorio Space Age before this stream, and that game, it's got obviously this amazing emergent puzzle style gameplay, but in addition, it's got so many of these, like, wonderful user experience innovations that make you feel like in charge of the whole thing.
Right. Yes.
In a way that you're not in a lot of other builder style games. And I would say all of that really nice, like, UX type stuff, it adds up. It really does.
For sure. Yes.
And it can be that the difference between something being a kind of an okay experience versus, like, a really great and an engaging experience.
Right. Yeah. So I think I will probably have to pop off relatively soon.
No worries.
I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like me to try here, or
I think that,
I mean, I think this thing you said about the UI and it adding up, I've definitely felt that, and even things that are, like, somewhere between UI and game mechanics. So as you were saying that, I was thinking about Return of the Obra Dinn, and the it has this really clever solution to how do you have incremental feedback in a mystery game without giving away the solution,
Yeah.
right? Because
Interesting.
you want the player to be trying ideas. Like maybe the butler did it, right? But if you just tell them
Right.
right away, like they guess the butler did it, and they say, and it either says yes or no, then it completely trivializes the game, right? Because you can just
Yeah, yeah.
spam theories until you.
You don't want it to just be about guessing. You want it to be about really working through, and that's kind of a similar thing with puzzle games. If it's just about guessing the solution, then you've sort of like lost the engagement, right? If you actually could just guess, none of the puzzles in this game, or at least most of the puzzles in this game, you can't just guess. Like you actually have to have a working theory for what you need to do. Because actually, if you think about the space of some of these games, almost certainly with Oberdin as well, even though I haven't played it, but
Oh, you
with
definitely
this
should.
game,
I mean, even just for design inspiration, it's a great game.
yeah, yeah. I certainly, well, now you've put that on my list, so I'm gonna have to play it.
And sorry, just to cap off that thought, as soon as Oberdin did that, there were many other additional games that did that used that same mechanic, or
Yeah,
mechanic or UI. This is what I was saying about it's sort of in between, right? Because it's a UI, it's a mechanic that's delivered through the UI, if you like.
sure, sure.
So
Yeah,
I
it's
played several other detective games that use that, and I mean, that idea of how do you present the information in a way that somehow maintains at least some of the mystery and makes trivializing the game combinatorially impractical, right? I mean, in
yeah,
principle, theoretically, like a robot or a script could trivialize Oberdin, right? It could just spam every possible combination, and it would take, whatever. It would take days to enumerate all the possible theories, but a human cannot do that, right?
sure, sure. Yeah, and it's probably a similar thing with this kind of genre as well. It's that actually the space of different moves that you could do is pretty large, and only a small subset of those is actually going to yield the result. And so spamming can't work.
Right.
So you have to have a working theory of some kind. Yeah, and that's very interesting. I'm going to have to check that out. I've heard great things about that game. I guess I had not had something to like enough of a recommendation to sort of push me over the edge on trying it out and playing it. But
Yeah, so
I definitely
as design advice is too strong a word. Something that I have found interesting in studying design, Oberdin, and then you can see the only other game that immediately comes to mind is what was it? Duck Detective and Tangle Tower. They both use similar kinds of mechanics. It's possible that Tangle Tower's precursor, there was a different game called Detective Grimoire or something that uses a similar kind of thing. Anyway, the point of all that is, it's interesting to see that like UI mechanic intersection thing as it plays out across multiple games. Because we were talking about like what might be a general kind of thing you could add to a puzzle game, like the snapshot thing that we spitballed. So that was that came to mind as a good example of something that happened in one game and then spread out productively to other games.
Well, and certainly the undo thing and redo and all
yeah.
that stuff that you see in Sokoban style games. I feel like when I was a kid and you would play, first of all, I don't think there were really many of these like emergent style Sokoban games.
Yeah.
Puzzle games when I was a kid. I was born in 1983. Were the puzzles, it was more like they were just kind of like putting down whatever they could put down in an editor. Like none
Right.
of them were really what I would call thinky puzzles.
Yeah.
Or puzzles that have this kind of emergent quality to them.
In past discussions, I've used the term untie the knot puzzles, or if you want the more technical one, invert the hash puzzles, right? Where like theoretically you could invert a hash function, but like there's no insight to it, right? You're just pull out a good hash function.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great way of putting it. Like I feel like a lot of the quote unquote puzzles from early, say, games that I played as a child were a lot like that. There weren't really many that had this kind of. So even just the idea of the emergent puzzle game, or the thinky puzzle game, is relatively new, but then there are still so many other kinds of innovations that have yet to be, right? Yep. And once us designers, or we designers, find some of those, it is almost certain to propagate to other similar style games.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, that's a cool discussion. Really glad that you took the time to play the game.
Nope, my pleasure.
And
I
show
really
everybody
like how it has shaped up.
Oh, that's awesome. Glad you enjoy it. And yeah, for folks watching, it's on sale right now, 20% off on Steam. Normally the game runs for $5.99, which my friends tell me is a steal and that I'm not charging nearly enough. So I guess take that for what it's worth.
Easily worth the $6 or $5 right now on the sale.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well there you have it. And I just want to say thanks again, Demetri, for taking your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, thanks. All right, good to stop the stream now.
Okay.
Okay, stream is stopped. Stopping recording.